Sometimes it doesn't matter how good a video game is. External forces just keep it from reaching an audience and it undersells, usually dampening any hope for a sequel or a follow-up. One such blunder many developers unfortunately go through are having very, very poorly timed release dates. I'm sure there's a few on this list you'll definitely remember, so without further delay, let's get started.
The man they call Max.
Mad Max, a somewhat underrated open-world game set in the Mad Max universe. You would think releasing the same year as the critically acclaimed Fury Road would have given this game a leg up on its competition. However, it was released on the exact same day, September 1st, 2015, as one of the greatest gaming franchises on planet Earth, the newest Metal Gear Solid game, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Now, while I personally dislike almost everything story-wise about 5, and the fact that David Hayter was replaced, no one could deny the gameplay was fire, and the best in the series. The mechanics specifically, the fun and creativity you can do in the open world in a Metal Gear setting was incredible. Let's be honest, no matter how popular Fury Road was in theaters, or Mad Max is as a universe, it just doesn't come close to Metal Gear. And don't even get me started on the controls. Circle to shoot? Was this game made in the 90s? I mean, come on.
And if I die knowing that I have made the choice.
Kingdoms of Amalur. This game sadly just doesn't get as much love as I personally feel it deserves. Famously published by 38 Studios, a company formed by former professional Major League Baseball starting pitcher Curt Schilling. Now, while the game did have a lot of internal issues, that certainly didn't help it, and the over-budget and mismanagement of money and funds, the game was also released only 3 months after Skyrim. Honestly, releasing any RPG within a year of a game that popular was gonna be tough. But that was on top of the internal failures of 38 Studios, and it sadly faded away, at least until the remaster in 2020.
Who the hell are you?
I suspect you already know.
They call themselves Trinity.
Rise of the Tomb Raider. I actually really enjoyed this trilogy, barring the ridiculous microtransactions in Rise's, Expeditions mode, and thought it sold pretty damn good, despite what Square Enix says. Not at first though, because it was an Xbox exclusive at the time. Rise, being the middle of the trilogy, was hyped up leading up to release considering how well the first game in this reboot series fared. While being a great game, it was being released the same day as a juggernaut, okay? That being Bethesda's hotly anticipated Fallout 4. This was their first Fallout game since 3, New Vegas was developed by Obsidian, and first overall game since Skyrim. So all eyes were on this game. Now, while I personally liked Fallout 4 the least out of all the Fallout games, at least between 3, New Vegas, and 4, it was still damn good, and most people gravitated to that, leaving Rise in the dust until its PS4 release 1 year later.
Back up. Option A was to kill me?
Immortals of Aveum. Say what you will about the game, I actually really kind of liked it. Essentially a magic first-person shooter with a hint of Metroid-style backtracking. Now, there are 2 things that killed this game. 1 being its severe lack of good marketing, and 2, its release date. See, the game was sandwiched between Starfield and maybe the best game of the last 10 years, Baldur's Gate 3. See, they thought they only really needed to compete with Starfield, and while in my opinion, Starfield is the most boring game they've released in over 20 years, it was this sleeping giant of Baldur's Gate 3 and its monumental, massive success that spelled doom for Immortals. That and its name. I mean, who thought this was a good name for a game? I mean, come on guys, really?
No! We disrobe!
Keep your pants on.
Although it could be used as a distraction.
Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm putting this, game on here because I want more people to play the damn game. I could even argue I enjoy a lot more of the Guardians' personalities here than in the trilogy of movies. You see, while technically another game's release date didn't kill the game, the quality of one did. You see, before Guardians, we unfortunately had The Avengers, and that game was so damn boring and bad that most people just kind of steered clear of any Marvel game for a while, and poor Guardians suffered for it. So in a way, release dates did play a role in this, if only Guardians came out first, or decided to sit on the game and release it when people forgot all about The Avengers. probably the best superhero game outside of the Arkham and Insomniac Spider-Man games. It's such a tragedy that it almost certainly won't get a sequel now.
Wake up.
Alan Wake. I love Remedy. I love Alan Wake. And to have to wait over a decade for a sequel was torture. Do you know why we had to wait that long? Well, one is probably the Xbox exclusivity at the time, but the main reason is 100% releasing the same day as Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto Western game, Red Dead Redemption. Now, Red Dead as a series has already been around for a while, having some success, but this was Rockstar finally putting the GTA spin on it. And after the absolutely monumental and game-changing success that was Grand Theft Auto 4, the entire gaming world community was on their hands and knees waiting for this game. It released and is considered one of the best games ever made, with one of the best protagonists ever in John Marston. Absolutely insane to think Remedy thought they had a shot against a Rockstar game. I hope this is a lesson for anybody even thinking of releasing something around Grand Theft Auto 6.
Well, that could have gone better.
Battleborn. Does anybody even remember Battleborn? Came out May 2016. Ringing any bells? Well, the reason why you probably cannot remember this game is it released the same month as Uncharted 4 and the reboot of Doom. But it wasn't until May 24th that everything in gaming history changed. You see, May 24th would see the release of Overwatch on PC and consoles, which has since become one of the most popular hero shooters ever released. Granted, Battleborn also had a PvE experience, while Overwatch was entirely PvP. Even though Overwatch promised a PvE mode with its release of Overwatch 2 many years later, which they have since cancelled, sadly. But at the time, and for many years after, every hero shooter had to compete with Overwatch, and it was essentially a bloodbath.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I first need to preface this with I absolutely loved and had zero bugs with Cyberpunk 2077 at release on my Series X. I was a Cyberpunk defender for years before any of these newcomers jumped on because of the popularity of Phantom Liberty. Now, while no other game's release date technically hurt Cyberpunk, I'll say that Cyberpunk's own release date ended up hurting Cyberpunk. They should have delayed the game another year, or completely ditched previous gen platforms like the PS4 and Xbox One. The game ran so poorly on those systems, people were getting refunds in waves from the likes of Sony and Microsoft. It was insane, and probably the reason the multiplayer component was cancelled and why we only got one DLC. They had to spend years fixing the game instead of working on new content. A year's delay for polish would have helped tremendously, but it did have one of the best comeback stories of all time, with the anime Edge Runners bringing in new and old players due to how good it was, and one of the best expansions in gaming with Phantom Liberty. So I guess it all worked out in the end.
Over 16 vessels have been hijacked within the last 10 months.
SOCOM 4 US Navy SEALs. This poor game. During the early to mid-2000s, SOCOM was the shooter on the PS2, and when Sony unveiled the PlayStation Network for the PS3, it was time to bring good old SOCOM back as an answer to Xbox's Halo. Say what you will about the campaign being lackluster, the multiplayer is where this game shined, and that is where we have the biggest problem here. See, the game released on April 18th or 19th, 2011. Now, if that date doesn't ring any bells, let me give you a quick history lesson. You see, between April 17th and the 19th of 2011, PSN was hacked, in which personal details from approximately 77 million accounts were compromised and prevented users of PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Portable consoles from accessing the service. So the online functionality was shut down almost an entire month, lasting until May 14th, 2011, about 24 days. So a game that was banking on multiplayer as its biggest selling point was effectively dead for a month, and players rightfully moved on, leaving SOCOM 4 and the franchise dead ever since.
BT-7274. Your data recorder says your original pilot was killed in action.
Correct.
Titanfall 2. My sweet, sweet baby Titanfall 2. How dirty you were done by EA, who I will never forgive until my dying breath.
I'll never forgive this.
Probably the most egregious release date failure on this list, and maybe of all time. Besides the fact that the first game was an Xbox exclusive when Titanfall 2 wasn't, meaning PlayStation fans were surprised to even be getting the game also had a campaign this time, and let me just say, one of the best single-player first-person shooter campaigns in history. Criminally underrated, and the multiplayer was the most fun I've personally had in a shooter since maybe Halo Reach. I was stunned how much I liked it. Now, I'm sure everyone and their mother knows this by now, but Titanfall 2 managed to find itself sandwiched between both Call of Duty Infinite Warfare and Battlefield 1. I mean, who thought this was a good idea? And to add a cherry on top of this shit sundae is that Electronic Arts published both Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 1 and Titanfall 2. It's hard to not feel like EA intentionally sent Titanfall 2 off to die. And now we're here stuck with Apex Legends Forever, which pretty much put the final nail into the Titanfall 3 coffin. I curse you, EA. I spit on you. And those were the top 10 games that failed due to the very poorly timed release dates. I took a little leeway here and there, but I mostly stayed on topic. If there are any others you guys can think of, or that I might have forgot, let me know down in the comments. I'd also appreciate it if you left a like and maybe even subscribe. I just hit 1,000 subs recently and I couldn't be more thankful. Thank you to everyone who decided to watch even one of my badly made videos that I try to do in my spare time. Anyways, thank you so much. Talk to you next time.